Welcome to the Cool Fireman Podcast, a virtual firehouse kitchen table with Matt, Adam, Brian, Doug, and Freddie, where they discuss everything that matters in today's fire service. Now let's get to the show.
I need for you to pick up your phone and tell me why you just pulled out a whole handful of Twizzlers from your pocket.
What?
No, they're pens.
Oh, okay. I want you to pull that up because I swear to you, as your phone fell, it looked like you had a pocket full of Twizzlers, red Twizzlers. Speaking of Twizzlers, any of y'all like Twizzlers? I hate it. I hate licorice. It is disgusting.
I like the cherry ones and strawberry ones are not very good. I don't like the
I
strawberry.
I knew they were Twizzlers.
That lying son of a bitch.
They know they ain't got pens. My man pulled out a handful of them bad boys. He says, "When I come to work, I come to work." And that's how we start off this week's episode of the Cool Fireman Podcast. What is up, y'all? Look at that. Look at that. That's a big pimp, and then the phone falls again. I love it. I love it. It looks like Doug's fresh from the softball fields with no ground balls. Y'all have good practice today?
We did. We played this weekend, and we really went over some hidden change-ups because one of the pitchers, or the pitcher that we're going to face Saturday morning, I know. We've seen her before, and she used to play with a team I was associated with. Great changeup, and throws it at any time in the count. So we really worked on hidden changeups. Nice. We hit a lot.
Nice. Dodging a lot of weather. We got our
so we actually had to go to a local high school, and they have two covered batting cages that we split into four. So we had 4 hit stations at one time. And one of my girls was like, "No ground balls. Why?" I was like, "Well, it's a simple math equation. The infield's this small and has 5 defenders. The outfield's this small and has 3 defenders.
3, yeah.
Just do the math."
Yeah.
So I want line drives and deep fly balls.
I love it.
Every now and again, a hard ground ball will get through, but if you're squaring the ball up and finding the barrel, you're hitting a line drive.
Nice. I tell you what, I love to hear coaches talk, and I ain't gonna lie, 90% of that went right over my head. But you know what? When somebody's that passionate about what they do, I mean, like, how can you be upset about that? Like, I mean, you know, true coaches are in it to win it, so that way the people stay passionate, and that's good stuff. I am super stoked. We have the East Coast Cool Fireman Podcast. Little jab there to it. So on tonight's podcast, we got Brian, Doug, and my man Adam.
Twizzle stick.
I was going to say, I'm threw me for a loop again. My man swinging his Twizzlers around.
Twizzle stick.
Twizzle sticks. So let's start out with a moment of silence, like we always do, and show some respect to the folks that we lost this week. All right. Amen to that. Your Cool Fireman Podcast is brought to you by the Burn Box, firefighter subscription box. You can check it out. We'll have a link in the video here. And then also Unkie seasoning. And just so you know, the Burn Box should be shipping out new boxes soon, and you should be able to get some really cool stuff in those. My phone is going off. Let me turn that off. Don't nobody want no jobs going off in the middle of the show. But then I also want to give a little touting to Unkies. I think this is the last episode of the month of July. So Adam, as you scarf down your Twizzler there, you want to talk about how the cookout went for this month, and let's tell our listeners about the Safer Expo in Raleigh, because that's a big deal we got coming up.
All right, so we got the month of July cookout, the whole entire month of July. We've been celebrating my girl's first birthday, and so we have weekly giveaways. We've been doing flash promos, flash sales, flash giveaways. We've been doing weekly giveaways. So if you purchase any seasonings from unkieseasoning.com, one, you get a free Red Cup Living Unkie with the Unkie's logo on it, solo cup. It's It's a hard plastic drinking cup. Trying to burp here.
What happens with Scarf Twizzlers? Does it taste the same coming up as it does going? Never mind. Stop.
Yeah, waxy. So, and every week on Sunday, we take all that week's customers and we draw a name and we got an extra giveaway for you. And there's one more of those. That's this Sunday. And then everybody that orders anything from uncieseasoning.com for the month of July will go into the end of the month drawing, which will be on August 1st. And it's over $250 worth of items. I mean, coffee from First In, Last Out Coffee Company. A set of Blackstone knives. On each flag, 4 set of the Red Solo cups. A cup, a laser engraved tumbler from Station 3 Leatherworks.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did one for us too. And so there's like a handful of stuff. Sauces from Bootstrap Burt's Hot Sauces. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff. And
well, I can tell you the social media page has just been going nuts over giveaways and different things. Just sales. I had some folks send me pictures. My buddy Joe, when he did that tomahawk steak, I mean, it ought to tell you something. My wife, my mother-in-law cooks steaks tonight, and she cooks Mondays and Thursdays. So she decided to cook tonight. And literally in the text, it says, besides the fire marshal, does anybody want any other seasoning on their steak? Nobody responded with anything else other than that. So, it's become, and I know it's obviously, it's got a little bit of clout here at my house, but like, it's just the go-to for everybody. So
I've always salt and pepper on steak. Always. Yeah. Until I got butter and rosemary. And now I put that with salt and pepper.
It is so good.
And again, that's not, I love Unkie. That's not a plug. The stuff's that good. It's just really, really good.
It is.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That butter and rosemary. And I used the garlic and herb the other night. My in-laws were here.
Yes.
We really bought a little small bag of like mini golden potatoes. She's like, can you handle cooking the potatoes? I was like, yeah, how you want them? She's like, I don't care. Just cook them. Yeah. So I did a butter mixture with some Parmesan cheese, and I put some garlic and herb.
Garlic and herb, yeah.
And made that slurry in it, and then, scored the potatoes and put them face down.
Put a little bit of that buttery rosemary in with the garlic and herb. Adam and I say this all the time. When you blend the different seasonings, you can do Elizabeth salt and buttery rosemary. You can do garlic and herb and the buttery rosemary, like those different ones together. In fact, the turkey I just posted on my socials that I smoked was Elizabeth salt and buttery rosemary. And that on chicken, I'm telling you, if you just want a quick weekday night meal, shoot, who was it? You posted on your story. Somebody did chicken.
My friend Carol did it.
Oh my gosh, that chicken. I don't eat chicken on the bone. And I was like, I could tear into that right now. That looked good.
If you took it off the bone and didn't tell me, I might eat
it. So real quick, we could talk about this all night long. And I know that's not what people are here for. People are here to talk about different things, but I do want to make sure.
Are they even here?
Well, maybe. I mean, you know what I'm saying? They're watching, they're listening.
Oh, I do have some housekeeping when we come back.
Yeah. So I do want us to get over and mention that we have several events that we're going to be doing here in a little bit. Matt and I are going to be doing a class at the end of August. And so I want to put that plug out there again. If you're interested in some of the conversations that we have, if they have struck conversation at your table and you're interested in your department having us come out and talk, we do have that. Reach out to us via our emails addresses, and we'll be more than happy to facilitate that. We are doing those classes now, and just having the conversations on our behalf. Sometimes it's good just to come in there and facilitate those. And then the other thing with that is Adam and I are going to be at the South Atlantic Fire Rescue Expo in Raleigh, North Carolina. Adam's going to be in the booth with Taylor's 10 selling his seasonings. And then I'll be making an appearance. I'm actually going to be there all week doing some things, but I'm going to be specifically in his booth, jamming out on Saturday, August the 10th, during the safer hours as well. So, yeah.
I'll be in Charleston for softball. I was going to come.
Doug's like, I'm trying to get all this stuff squared.
I know. Like, I want to get. I can't.
Friday, you can come Friday. It's open.
No, I got softball Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's in Charleston. I'm going down Thursday.
Adam, I hear nothing but excuses.
Softball runs my life, dude.
I can see that.
My kid doesn't even play.
Oh, my life. Okay. So
a little bit of housekeeping.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's your housekeeping stuff?
From my rant, I prefaced the chief that I apologized to. I said, Chief, this is a very, very Christian fellow. I said, Chief, I just want you to know, I'm apologizing now. I texted him this. He listens. And I said, when the podcast comes out Friday, I'm sorry. Actually, he came to dinner. He ended up coming to dinner that night after I texted him. And I got a text from him following Wednesday. It was a text with my battalion chief and him. He's my assistant chief. Blah, 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 blah. And then he spaced. He said, also, I forgive you. And the crying emoji. I said, I was spot on, right? He said, absolutely.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Right? So, and I think
as
that
the Station 3 gentleman said, it was passionately venting, I think is yeah.
Sure. Those are not bad things.
While I use a lot of colorful words, my point was made.
Yeah. Anything else? Does that cover yours?
Other than the troll.
Yeah, we got some
trolling. Whatever.
We got somebody trolling on our page, but
I'll take all the smoke, but I ain't taking it from somebody with a fake profile.
Well, you know what? As I said,
be a man, stand on your words. I'm not even going to say your name because it's offensive.
Yeah, they create an account. They're just doing it. But as I said in the group chat, let the trolls come because all that does is help the algorithm. So comment on one.
I will professionally debate you about that topic any day of the week.
No doubt. I love it. I do want
another topic for that matter.
We were talking about the things that we were going to discuss tonight. We gave a moment of silence for those who may have died in the line of duty, but really, tonight's is really our focus is going to be on history and the way that the fire service has evolved and things have done over the years. And one of the things that really made me think about that topic and the reason why we needed to think about it was because of the generations. This past week celebrated my completed my 22nd year of service in professional service. I've been serving since 1998, but I started in the professional service July 22nd, 2002. And so that was this past week. But then also this week, Adam lost his uncle, who was a firefighter. And so, when you look at that, you can't help but acknowledge the ones that have come before you and the things that have happened in front of you. And so, in addition to that, before I forget, this week I was asked through a FOIA request to research fires, and I'm not going to go into that because of the organization and everything else that I work for, but somebody called and said, hey, I want any and all information about a fire that occurred in 1966. I wasn't even born then, but here I had to go through the history.
I was not either, so don't say it.
I was going to say,
I was waiting on Adam to say something. I was waiting on Adam to say something.
But
God, my beard, look at my beard, dude. Oh my God.
It's
so white.
Can you moisturize that? Just a little bit. So, but it is. And we think about the ones that came before us and after us. And the comments that I had on that Facebook post were a lot of retirees that have now retired that were my mentors, when I first started. And these guys have been retired now 10, 12, 15 years. And I can blink back and think back to riding the truck with these guys like it was yesterday. And so that history is important. So, Adam, I want to give you the floor and kind of talk about, what you posted this week. I think that that's important and, what that kind of means to you. And then maybe how you view history, and then Doug, how you view yours. And then, I'll kind of wrap up with how I view mine of the fire service. Cause I think there's a different take on it, as a whole and how different people see it.
Okay.
Well,
the history, yeah. The history of my family is, I guess you can say multi-generation, first responders. My grandfather was a Norfolk County patrolman.
Norfolk.
Norfolk. And became a Chesapeake police officer when the city formed. And his oldest son is my uncle that I lost this past week. And he was a police officer for the city of Chesapeake. He was a firefighter for the city of Chesapeake. Then he followed, and he retired out of the Department of Defense, the same department I'm at. He did around 30 years with the DoD. And when I came on board in 2006, we're assigned at the same base, same shift. So that was kind of cool. My father was also in the same shift, but it was at a different base far away. So we would never work together. But me and my uncle, we got transferred out. It was always to his firehouse, and got to ride the truck with him, or the second truck that was in the station. Then eventually he got moved to my station, which is still in the airfield, and we rode countless calls together. When I first got in 2006, we had a fire, and the first fire I had with the Department of Defense, he was there. So he was, I would guess you consider a legend in the pumping. He was a fantastic engineer, and he came from the era of you didn't go to school for it. It was taught and passed down to you.
It was a craft.
He learned all that stuff when he was in the city of Chesapeake. Actually, in the city of Chesapeake as a volunteer. And my father started off as volunteer firefighters. And Deep Creek Fire Station, where my brother is a lieutenant at now, same physical station, which is being replaced in 1-2 years. New one's going to open up. So, I mean, I had a lot of good times with them. We used to joke, my uncle, like half of the SOPs in Chesapeake are because of him. So, but he's fine with that. He was the reason why you couldn't bring your guns to the fire station anymore. And then back in those days, the guys went hunting on duty right outside the station because the city wasn't that very developed.
That's not but one word.
What?
Hunting ain't but one word. You said hunting.
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 So, yeah, he took a BB gun and shot the station where he was at was actually in a neighborhood. Shot a gentleman's Great Dane twice in the ass. But the reason why, they had the bay doors half open. They're all sitting there cleaning their guns and stuff. And that owner was walking by the station's trash can, and he would let his dog go through it. And would tear it all up, trash everywhere, and they would just leave. So he opened the bay door just enough, crouched down, shot that dog twice in the ass with a BB gun. Then they said, no more guns at this fire station. So, and there's like countless driving ones. He was a hoot. Wheel chocks, yeah. You got to wheel chalk your vehicle all the time on ramps. If not, they will.
We got one of those.
Free roll right into somebody's house.
So I want to go back to that first fire, DOD fire, for a second with your uncle. Do you remember what was going through your mind at that moment? When I say at that moment, not like, oh God, I got to make sure I do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, at the moment that after it was over, it was done, and you realized, hey, I just ran my first fire with my uncle. Like, I don't know that there's a lot of people that get to say that in the professional setting. I think in the volunteer setting, it happens all the time. In rural America, it happens all the time. You were talking about how things came about, but in a paid setting for a uncle and a nephew to ride a truck, I don't know that that's that common. I mean, it may be. I can tell you, there's, good old boys. I hate to say it like that, but I think there are good old boy networks and maybe other parts of the country and in select few departments it's that way, but I don't know that that's the case. You may have relatives on the same department, but not necessarily riding the same truck. And I just think that is really cool.
When we got to ride with the same truck, we both got transferred because his captain retired and his captain really tight. So they transferred him to my station. We both got put on opposite shifts of my father. And the reasoning was they didn't want me to work the same shift as any family member. So here I am, in the same station, same shift as my uncle, riding the same truck. I couldn't be on the same shift as my father that I was on the same shift for 5 years with.
Nice.
And at the time, I still lived at home. So, and our schedules are completely opposite. I would never see him for every 2 weeks for like a day or two. So, for a day.
So so if you had to summarize kind of what is your value of history in the fire service as a guy that's got
Like
multiple generations of emergency services? What's your value in it? If you've got 2 girls, right?
Yeah.
They may come back and say, Dad, I don't want to do this, right? I don't want to do anything in it. What is your thoughts? I don't blame you, right? Like, I mean, I get it. Some people probably say that, but
Yeah. I don't blame him because I never grew up wanting to be a firefighter. A buddy twisted my arms and he's like, "Hey, you said we were going to join the volunteers after we graduated high school. Lemonade or a drink." I was like, yeah, whatever. Never want to be a firefighter. My uncle that I lost, he was giving me advice. My dad, when I decided to go to DOD, my dad said, do whatever you want to do. So I worked for the city at the time. My mom said, stay with the city. So you don't know how tough it is with our schedule, our DOD schedule. And you know what my uncle told me? The best advice that I never took. Go do something else. Don't do this job. I said, you talking about don't go to DOD? He goes, nope. He goes, go get a totally different job.
well, and I think you're meant to be where you are, right? Like that comes back to what it is. And I mean,
I just loved it, man. I mean, you get to break people's stuff. People are having bad days. You're there to make it better.
That's right.
I mean,
that's right.
it is a high that you get by helping somebody have a better day.
Yeah.
Of course, there's all kinds of baloney that goes with it. The simple gas leak smell, the smell of smoke, the light blue, smoke detectors,
Yeah.
But
I can remember, and I'm gonna, Doug, don't get riled up when I talk about this, because when I
get riled up.
well,
when you
because I talk about, I'm gonna talk about EMS for a second.
Probably the calmest guy,
So, I came from a volunteer fire department that did not do EMS at all. And so when I first got when I first got on my career department, I can remember the first medical call that I was the EMT that was really doing patient care, right? So I came in, I was not credentialed. Back then in 2002, we were doing first responder, but you didn't necessarily have to be the EMT because there's other people on the truck. So while you were getting your cert, you were the guy or the lady that was handing the nasal cannula, the non-rebreather. You were handing over equipment while you were going through your training. But once it was on me to actually do that training, I'll never forget the first person that I put oxygen on and I saw their O2 saturation improve. And I got back in that truck and I was like, I did that. I did that.
Saved a life.
Like I did something.
Hercules.
Right? Like I was like, I did something. This is good. And I listened, and I'll never forget. I had a young lady hyperventilate at a McDonald's, and I was
the first time you cardio for one.
Well, look, I'm too close to retirement. I ain't trying to do all that.
Shit,
But anyway,
oh God, they're alive. Let's go.
but I can remember going to a McDonald's, and a young lady was hyperventilating, and I can remember telling her, I was like, "Ma'am, if you just hold my hands, and if you'll just breathe in and out with me, just in through your nose, out through your mouth. Come on, we can do this." I said, "Now, if you don't, you're gonna pass out. Like you're gonna." And she's like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna pass out." And there she went, like she passed out, like solid on the table. And I was like, "Well, it worked." And the guy was like, "You did that on purpose?" And I was like, "Yeah." She wasn't listening, but now she's regulated, and look, her O2 sats are coming back up. And so
you knew the trick then.
I knew the trick.
It's easy to control you when you're unconscious.
That's right. Your body will fix itself.
That's right.
So I mean, the history of that was from a guy that was just tickled to death to put a nasal cannula on and watch the numbers go up. I sat back, I shut up, and I listened to the guys that had been doing it for a while, as well as the paramedics that were coming in and doing our in-services. And they taught me those little tricks, make them think that you're helping them in that panic attack, but like help themselves more than what they can help in that moment. Because if they could have, they wouldn't have called you. They wouldn't be having a panic attack. So either they're going to listen to you,
slow their breathing down, or you will make them pass out.
Right.
You're about to pass out.
Yes. Yeah, they're like, oh God. So it's good stuff, but I love it. All right. So Doug, what's your take on history? Like as a whole of the fire service, what do you think it brings? Do you think it brings value or what?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, yes and no. Because like anything, change is necessary, and you don't forget where you came from, but you can't stay that way to go where you're going.
Right.
Right. And I think my department is a big, what's the word I'm looking for? Proponent.
Advocate?
Yeah, advocate maybe. Yeah. Because we have, I think in the early 40s is when I think my department first started as a Chester Volunteer Fire Department or something. Anyway, we got a pretty big history. We have a whole museum, and it used to be, it still is currently at the basement of Station 12 in Ettrick, where it all started. And, but that station is on the budget to be rebuilt, so it's going to have to move. But anyway, really cool museum of all of our memorabilia and some of our earlier stuff and that kind of stuff. So cool. But we have gotten to a point now where our command staff the age has kind of started backsliding to getting to the 30s and the 40-year-old guys instead of the 50s and 60s, the guys that probably should retire. So they see the need to progress and not keep doing the way things have always been done.
Yeah.
Not keep doing things the way they've always been. You got to push the envelope, wherever you're from, the only constant is change, right?
Right.
I mean, people always say firemen hate two things: change and the way things are. But if you don't change, you have to evolve, right? While history is important and we should never forget it, and that not just in the fire service, just in general, we have to evolve and be able to mold and change off of what used to work probably doesn't work now, especially when it comes to building construction. Like that's probably the biggest reason why we have to change. I mean, you hear the retiree thing. You hear those guys, they'll come back to the fire station, they'll talk about calls that happened in 1989 and 1994. And I'm like, dude, that's not the way it would happen right now because, that roof structure that you were standing on top of was already gone in this fire. Like this fire is going to burn for 3 minutes versus that one. Like it's a different ballgame. And that's with the world. It just is what it is. Yeah. However, I love that we hold on to a lot of the history that we can, the leather helmets, a lot of the older traditions of I like my own tools. Helmets is probably the biggest one, but like guys wanted to there's still guys out there want to wear 3/4 boots and shit. Like what? No.
Do y'all have bells on your trucks?
No.
Anybody? I was gonna say that's one of those things that, and I know this sounds very cheesy, but in my travels, in doing different things with the fire department and the services and associations, I'll ask the question about history. And one of the ways that I'll know that a department has a rich history is a lot of departments. And I know this sounds very cheesy and cliche, but a department that runs bells on their trucks, usually tradition is huge in their department. I mean, you think about a bell. If you've ever spec'd a truck, a bell on a truck is not cheap, but it shows the symbolism and the value of what that means. So,
I got one on my truck right now, and I think we're the only one in my department with one.
Yes.
But in the city of Suffolk, Virginia's largest city, city of Suffolk, all their fire trucks have bells on them.
Bells, right? And so, I mean, it's one of those things that it's not about the functionality of the daggone thing, because it don't work. I mean, a bell is useless when responding to a call. But it is about the tradition of it and the history of it and the, whatever. It's about the showpiece. I think that's important. So, I think you segued into kind of my thoughts about what history are. And I'm much like you. I have, of course, from a prevention lens, I use it all the time. I was in a business today and someone had built something without permits. And so myself and the building inspector were there and we were explaining the why of it. right? Like why is it important for you to have this? And in particular, it was too tall. Like the building inspector
Close
said,
to the ceiling.
well, no, not from the ceiling. It was like it was a platform that people could stand on. And it was not a large one. And you could see the look on the guy's face is like
tall enough to need a railing.
Like, well, not even a railing. It was taller than a step. And I'll explain all this. It was a platform and it was greater than 7 inches. And so in his mind, he's like, what's the big deal? It's 12 inches. It's not 7. And you're going to tell me that I have to take this whole thing out. And so the why of that was point blank. It's the law, right? So if it exceeds 7 inches in height, it has to have a ramp for accessibility. Mm-hmm. My statement back to the guy was like, imagine if you had someone come in here to speak, because this was at a place where people would come and speak. That's why he has a platform. And I said, and they were in a walker. They can't physically raise their leg. So they have to be able to get up and over. And so if we don't remember where we came from and the why of that, it's very hard for us to remember why it's important for today. And in my world, the book is full of the history of why things were, and they got put in code so that way people don't die or get hurt again. And truth be told, if we opened up and we looked at all the tools and everything that's on that truck, right? The bell is there because we just want to pay homage to the history. But innovation, right? The innovation, all the change that you were talking about is because of people do the same thing as that platform. They've gone back, they've invested in it. You know, we put a lot of stock in some of our different sponsors that we have. And if you get to think about the different groups that we have that have come on and talked about tools that they've invented and things like that, none of that stuff was in the past. But everybody moved it forward.
Necessity, mother of invention thing.
Yeah. And I think that's the value in it. So, I guess the way I want to kind of close this one out is ask the question to the people that may be listening. What is the one thing that you value most about history in your organization, or the one thing that your department does really well when it comes to history? And one thing that you would, pay homage to, I guess, as far as the fire service history. So that's the question I want to close out. What's the one thing historically in the fire service that you find the most value in? Doug, what is it? What is it?
We have a retirees luncheon, and I'm pretty sure it's monthly. I'd have to ask one of the recently retired guys, but I'm pretty sure it's monthly. And I think the fire chief goes sometimes. But I think that's awesome. I mean, those guys you got guys that have been gone for 12 years, 15 years. God bless them if they get to retire that long. I hope I get to retire that long. And you got guys that retired a month ago. And I think it's awesome because they don't lose hope or lose touch, not hope. They don't lose touch with what's going on. And the guys that come by the station and just hang out, like, I want you to come hang out, but like, don't understand you're welcome, but like, come hang out, come eat a meal with us. Let's talk about things. And so you get that, you keep that, you shared the kitchen thing, the kitchen video. Like dude, those guys, all of us, we love that kitchen environment. It's what we live for. Well, I mean, we live for the job, but at the same time, like outside the job,
outside of that work, that's number 2.
Inside the fire station, that's the only place that really matters.
Yeah.
So come hang out with us and eat a meal. Just spend 2 hours with us, finish up the meal, eat the meal, and then for an hour BSing. And I love that.
I think, and I'm going to go back to a couple of episodes ago with Matt, and we talked about, what's the one thing that you're going to miss the most about retiring? And we talked about like things like that, the horseplay and the having a good time, things like that. And I think that we also talked about how do you engage people more? If retirees would come back and reminisce with people, you'd be so surprised. I go back and look back at my time in the firehouse on shift. And when the retirees came around, that was the time that I was sometimes the most engaged because I listened to the stories. I listened to my captain. I listened to my senior people light up as they reminisced, still on duty with those who had retired. And I think
when I was still in drill school, we had to go around and do ride-alongs, like I'm sure most departments do. I went to Station 14 one day. Me and a colleague of mine, or coworker of mine, Doug McWilliams, we both got sent to the same station to ride along because my recruit school was big. Well, one of the guys there said, "Hey," I said, "Hey, is there anything we could be doing right now?" And they're like, "Nope. What I want you to do, sit down at a recliner. You talk to Dale Fields, listen to everything he says. You'll learn something."
So
it was great.
Be a sponge.
Yeah, it was great.
That's your job.
Dale was awesome. You know, when Dale retired, we lost a lot of experience, like legit fire experience, because he came from Petersburg, and Petersburg is known for fighting a lot of fire. Like it was a big deal. So guys like Dale, when Big Daddy comes around, like you listen when Big Daddy talks. You know.
Mm-hmm. I love it. How about you, Adam? What's the one thing that history-wise that you value most, either in your organization or just the fire service as a whole? What is it?
Yeah. Really, it's just, to me, it's my family's history, our involvement in first responders. It's pretty cool how far it goes back. To me, that's what it is.
I think that is cool. You know, my dad, he was a volunteer rescue squad member, but that's it. And it was like, you know, it wasn't a huge service. It was because the family was doing it and he did it. And, you know, I got some cool stories with it, but I don't have that kind of story. When I was county fire marshal, I'd ride around and listen to stories about generations of people serving. Like, that's a cool story to talk about it and to engage and do all those things. I think it's pretty cool. I think for me, the one thing that I love the most about history is got to be the tradition piece of our history, kind of like what Doug was saying about our helmets and, you know, our uniforms and our things like that. And it's not about the show. It's about pride. To me, that tradition is about taking pride in our service and what we represent. I mean, it's one, you know, we get around the firehouse, our shirt tails get untucked, you know, we take our shoes off, we have a good time. It is really a relaxed atmosphere. But most departments, something as simple as representing yourself well with your helmet, keeping your trucks clean. I mean, little things like that, those go a long way, I think, when it comes to the history of what we have. Because that, you know, Doug talked a lot about how things change. Those are things that don't change. And that's a good thing in my mind, because pride is one of those things that you can't just pick up out of the trash and put it back on the table and expect it to be used again. Doug, looks like you were going to say something.
Yeah, so talk about the family thing, Unkie. There's one guy in my department, Zach Beers. Bears? I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Bears. Anyway, he knows what I'm talking about. Just here's a picture. You may not be able to see it well, but that's him and his grandfather. He lost his grandfather, I think, 16 years ago is what this post said. But his grandfather worked for Baltimore City, and like he's really, really, really big into the history. Like he's been to he's been to Baltimore to visit the station where his grandfather worked at, and you're talking probably the 30s, 40s, you know, whatever, how long ago that was.
Yeah,
like
Baltimore's a big city.
Yeah, like for a guy like Zach, like that's a big deal, man. Like that, like his grandfather told him stories that probably, if he was still alive, would still blow his mind. He'd probably still be telling new stories. Got more stories in the Bible, you know, especially the city of Baltimore. So, I mean, for a guy like him, that's a big deal. I don't have anybody in my family. I'm it, you know. But for a guy like Zach, like history's a big deal to people like that. I mad respect.
Yeah.
More on my side is, I mean, it is the first responders, but like my family, they were somewhat movers and shakers in the city of Chesapeake and in the city of Portsmouth when it was formed in 1963. So we had my grandfather's best friend was the mayor of city Chesapeake at one time. Fantastic guy. I worked for him. My grandfather ran a department. Deep Creek Village was like the area of Chesapeake where everything came out of. Everything that's named after everybody came from the Deep Creek Village. For you to run something, you had to be from Deep Creek. And so the uprising of the city, the interstate coming through, stuff like that. My grandfather would tell me, you know, all these little ins and outs of the city. And one of the most things I was tickled about when I was working with the city of Chesapeake, I stopped by their house and he's like, "Hey, what's going on in the city?" I was like, "Yeah, over there in this neighborhood, they were putting a pool in, and the guy was digging, and a big puff of white powder came out. And it was one of those, like one of those waves of anthrax scares were going around. You know, somebody drops the baby powder, all of a sudden everybody sees anthrax. So they were worried about it. He was like, "Oh," he says, that whole neighborhood is built on top of a dump. They don't even know it. I was like, well, how do you know it? And he's like, oh, everything's safe in there. We all put everything in a plastic bag. I was like, when was this done? He's like, the early 50s. I was like, how do you know it's there? He said, I was the one that put the last layer of dirt on it. I was like,
Still got the shovel.
Nice.
I'm like, it was only 3 feet down.
That's a shooter reference for some of y'all.
It's only 3 feet down. He's like, it was in a plastic bag. It's safe.
Oh my gosh.
But he was starting to tell me all kinds of cool stuff. Who owned this and their connections. A lot of moonshine ran through Chesapeake. And he's like, this is the store where everybody bought it from. He says, this is who made it, blah, blah, blah. And he says, over here is where I would arrest them and chase them down. And my grandmother goes, yeah, and our closet was the evidence closet, but only a jar out of gallons, a jar would make it to court.
I wonder why.
I'm drunk.
60 short years later, Portsmouth's a shithole.
Well, I was going to say, I know we need to wrap up, but the one thing I would reach out to everybody to do, Doug kind of mentioned about his department having a history department. Whether you're big or small, somebody needs to start it. So either to kind of keep that history alive, to keep that information going, write it down. I have a gentleman at my VFD who will just bring me sometimes pieces of paper and just, it has things on it. And I love to listen to his story, just like kind of what Adam was saying, and just soak it all in and just listen to it. And not only that, research things about your community, your first due. You want to know why things are where they are, or why is that an empty lot right in the middle of everything? You'd be surprised. We have a book for our community that was published that went from colonization all the way to 1962. And so when I'm out doing my job, it literally is beside my code book. And so when I go out on all the political inspections or the meetings or whatever, I go to that book and I look at it, especially if there's multiple generations, just so I can get the history of things. Because sometimes I go in and I don't want to say I'm one-upping them, but it's a good way to start and end a conversation. And that's kind of, just situational awareness. I'll go in and I'll say, hey, didn't your grandma used to pastor the church, or your grandfather used to pastor this church back in whenever? And they would go, yeah, how did you know that? I said, well, I read this book and I have this, and it automatically, there is a sense it creates, and I know I'm getting off on a side tangent, but it creates a sense of caring. So if you know that information about your first due, and whether you're in doing pre-incident planning or whether you're at a community event and someone introduces themselves, again, it goes back to that tradition and the pride in your community that you have to just know the history, right? And I think that speaks volumes about making sure that you're situationally aware. So I think it's pretty good. I think this was a good topic to discuss. And Adam still has a whole handful of Twizzlers. He only ate 3. So that was good. We kept
you counting me, weirdo.
Well, that's because
yeah.
You know what? I just guessed. So you told on yourself. So
I don't know how many I ate.
I don't.
These are in my pocket, so they all got dirt and tobacco all over them. So they're going to.
Pocket sand. You're going to pocket sand, bro.
They're gonna.
I'm good on pocket sand today.
You're gonna just eat them once we get off of here, and you're gonna watch the WWE recap. I know how it goes.
I'm gonna read some off, and that comes on Thursdays.
Whatever. I don't know. Some kind of stuff. Anyways, hey guys, we appreciate you watching or listening to this week's episode. This week's episode. Don't forget, if you're in Raleigh or you can make it to Raleigh, North Carolina, come see us. And give us a shout out. Don't forget to check out the Cool Fireman Podcast, or is it thecoolfireman.com, for some merch opportunities as well. That's a good way to support us and show some love as well. Anybody got anything else, or are we going to roll it?
Roll it, GG.
Roll it, GG.
Before you leave, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give these firemen a huge thumbs up. Also, make sure you check out thecoolfireman.com for more. Thanks!